The notification pinged at 11:47 p.m., just as I was settling into bed with a beer and my phone. Jocelyn had posted another Instagram story from her girls' trip to the Berkshires. The photo showed her and her friends, Britt and Tina, raising champagne glasses on a hotel balcony, all smiles and designer sunglasses. But there, unmistakably visible in the corner of the frame, was a man's arm with a distinctive anchor tattoo. I knew that tattoo. I'd stared at it plenty of times during our college years when Caleb Monroe would flex at parties, showing off for whatever girl caught his eye that week, including my wife, apparently. My name's Eli Granger, and I'm an insurance adjuster. I spend my days investigating claims, spotting inconsistencies, finding the truth people try to hide. It's made me good at noticing details others miss. Like how Jocelyn had been needing space for the past month. How she'd suddenly started going to the gym more, buying new lingerie she never wore for me, and taking mysterious phone calls in the bathroom. I screenshot the photo and opened her iCloud account. She'd never changed the password from our anniversary date, amateur mistake for someone trying to cheat. The original uncropped photo was right there in her camera roll, showing Caleb Monroe clear as day, his arm around my wife's waist while she leaned into him. But that wasn't all. Scrolling through her photos from the past month, I found dozens more. Caleb at restaurants I'd never been to with her. Caleb in what looked like a hotel room. Caleb's hands on my wife in ways that made my stomach turn. I sat there in our bedroom, surrounded by the life we'd built together over 8 years of marriage, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something sharper, more focused. This was the moment I decided that if Jocelyn wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real player looked like. I commented on her Instagram post, "Looks nice. Who's the guy with the tattoo?" My phone exploded with notifications within minutes. Missed calls, frantic texts. "What are you talking about? There's no guy. You're being paranoid again." I ignored them all and did what I do best. I investigated. Caleb Monroe, successful real estate agent, married to Melanie Monroe for 12 years, 2 kids, big house on Elm Street, perfect life, perfect reputation. He'd always been the golden boy in our small New England town, the guy everyone loved, the one who got away with everything because of his charm and his family's money. Not this time. I spent the next hour downloading everything from Jocelyn's cloud. Photos, texts, emails, location data. She'd been sloppy, keeping everything. The affair had been going on for 3 months. They'd been meeting at the Riverside Inn every Tuesday when she claimed to have book club. They'd been planning this girls' trip as a cover for a romantic weekend. The texts were the worst part. Not just the explicit ones, though those made me want to put my fist through the wall. It was the way she talked about me. "Eli's so boring. He never notices anything. I can't wait to be free of him. Caleb makes me feel alive again." By the time she came storming through our front door at 2 a.m., having driven 4 hours in the middle of the night, I was ready. "What the hell did you do?" she demanded, her face flushed with anger and panic. She was still beautiful, even furious. That's what had drawn me to her in college, that fierce energy, that passion. I'd just never imagined it would be turned against me. "You should be more careful with your clouds, honey," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Amazing what people leave lying around these days." She went pale. "Eli, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'm looking at about 3 months' worth of explanations right here. Very detailed explanations, some with pictures." Jocelyn sank into the chair across from me, and for a moment, I saw fear in her eyes. "Good. She should be afraid. It's not what you think," she started, but I held up my hand. "Save it. I know exactly what it is. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She tried tears first, then anger, then bargaining. Classic cheater's playbook. But I wasn't interested in her performance. I had work to do. The next morning, I sent a simple email to Melanie Monroe with the subject line, "I think we should talk." Attached were 3 photos and a screenshot of text messages between our spouses discussing their upcoming romantic getaway. Mel replied, "Within an hour. Coffee?" The Crooked Nail, 2 p.m. The Crooked Nail was the kind of dive bar that served as the unofficial town hall for anyone who didn't fit into the country club crowd. My old boxing buddy Frankie worked security there, and the bartender Rita knew everyone's business before they did. Mel was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. She looked like she hadn't slept, but there was steel in her eyes that reminded me why Caleb had married up when he got her. "How long have you known?" she asked without preamble. "About 12 hours. You?" I suspected for months. Caleb's been different, secretive. But I told myself I was being paranoid. She laughed bitterly. Turns out I wasn't paranoid enough. I slid my phone across the table, showing her the location data I'd pulled from Jocelyn's account. Every Tuesday for 3 months, plus weekends when you were out of town visiting your sister. Mel studied the information with the same methodical attention I brought to insurance fraud cases. She was a paralegal at the biggest law firm in town, and it showed in how she processed evidence. "What do you want to do about this?" she asked finally. "I want them to pay. Not just for the cheating, but for making us look like fools. For all the lies, all the sneaking around, all the times they laughed at us behind our backs." She nodded slowly. "I can work with that, but we do this smart. No violence, nothing that can come back on us legally. I'm an insurance investigator, Mel. I know how to build a case." We shook hands across the table, 2 wounded people forming an alliance that would change everything. The first phase was information warfare. Mel had access to financial records that showed Caleb had been spending money on hotels, restaurants, and jewelry that never made it home. I had digital evidence of the affair itself. Together, we painted a complete picture of betrayal, but we didn't go public immediately. Instead, we started planting seeds. I mentioned to Mrs. Redford, our neighbor who ran the town's most efficient gossip network, that Jocelyn seemed to be having some kind of personal crisis. "She's been so secretive lately, taking all these mysterious trips. I'm worried about her." Mel did the same with her book club, expressing concern about Caleb's strange behavior and late nights at the office. Meanwhile, Jocelyn was spiraling. She knew I had evidence, but not how much. She tried to control the narrative, posting cryptic messages on social media about haters and people who don't understand true love. She told her friends I was being controlling and paranoid, but her friends were starting to ask questions. Britt, her supposed best friend and fellow social media influencer, was particularly interested in the details. She loved drama, especially when she could position herself as the supportive friend in the middle of it. That's when I made my next move. I created an anonymous email account and sent Britt a message with the subject line, "Thought you should know about your friend." Inside was the uncropped photo from the girls' trip and a few choice text messages between Jocelyn and Caleb discussing how to keep their affair secret from their boring spouses. Britt, predictably, couldn't keep her mouth shut. Within 24 hours, the story was spreading through their entire social circle, but it was spreading as gossip, not verified information, which gave me plausible deniability. Jocelyn confronted me that night, angrier than I'd ever seen her. "Someone's spreading lies about me," she said, pacing our living room like a caged animal. "They're saying I'm having an affair with Caleb." "Are you?" I asked calmly. "Of course not." "How can you even ask me that?" "Because I've seen the photos, Joss. I've read the texts. I know about the Riverside Inn, about the Tuesday book clubs that don't exist, about the weekend in the Berkshires that wasn't just girls." She stopped pacing, her face going white. "You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention, something you might want to try sometime." She tried to flip the script, accusing me of violating her privacy, of being controlling and abusive. It was a desperate play, but it showed me she was ready to go nuclear to protect herself. That's when I decided to escalate. The next Tuesday, instead of going to work, I followed Caleb to his usual meeting spot with my wife. The Riverside Inn, just like clockwork. I didn't confront them. That would come later. Instead, I took photos of Caleb's distinctive BMW in the parking lot, time-stamped and geotagged. Then I went to the Crooked Nail and made sure I was seen by plenty of people. I played pool with Frankie, bought drinks for the regulars, made myself memorable. When Caleb's car was found later that night with cheater spray-painted across both sides, I had a dozen witnesses who could confirm I'd been at the bar all evening. The vandalism made the local police blotter, which meant it made the town Facebook groups, which meant everyone was talking about it. Caleb tried to play it off as random vandalism, but people started putting pieces together. Especially when someone, definitely not me, posted in the What's Happening in Town Facebook group asking if anyone else had noticed Caleb's car at the Riverside Inn during business hours. "Seems like an odd place for real estate meetings," the anonymous post said. The comments section exploded. People shared their own observations, their own suspicions. Mrs. Redford posted a long comment about how she'd noticed certain people in the neighborhood acting strangely lately, being secretive about their whereabouts. Jocelyn was frantic. Her carefully curated social media image was crumbling as people started questioning her posts, her trips, her explanations. She tried to rally her friends, but doubt had been planted. That's when Britt made her fatal mistake. She posted on her own Instagram story, defending Jocelyn and attacking the small-minded people spreading rumors. But she included details that she couldn't have known unless she'd seen the evidence I'd sent her. Tina, always jealous of both Jocelyn and Britt's popularity, jumped on the inconsistency. "How do you know so much about these rumors, Britt? Almost like you've seen proof or something." The friend group imploded. Accusations flew. Loyalties shifted. And in the middle of it all, more evidence kept appearing. Someone sent the local gossip blog photos of Caleb and Jocelyn together at restaurants around town. Someone else shared screenshots of Venmo payments from Caleb to Jocelyn for dinner and entertainment. Mel and I watched it all unfold from the sidelines, two puppet masters pulling strings while our cheating spouse's world collapsed around them. But Caleb wasn't going down without a fight. He cornered me outside the Crooked Nail one evening, his usual charm replaced by desperation and anger. "I know you're behind this," he said, getting in my face. "The car, the photos, all of it." "Behind what?" I asked innocently. "People talking about what they've observed?" "That's called living in a small town, Caleb. You're trying to destroy my marriage, my business. I'm not trying to do anything. You already destroyed those things when you decided to sleep with my wife." He took a swing at me then, which was his second mistake of the night. His first was confronting me alone. I'd been boxing since high school, and while I might not look like much compared to his gym-sculpted physique, I knew how to handle myself. I ducked his wild punch and put him on the ground with a quick combination to the body. Nothing fancy, nothing that would leave lasting damage, just enough to put him down and keep him there. "Here's how this works," I said quietly, standing over him in the parking lot. "You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to stay away from me. And if I hear you've been trying to intimidate anyone else involved in this situation, you'll find out that vandalism was the least of your problems." Frankie appeared at my shoulder. He'd been watching from inside, ready to back me up if needed. "Everything okay out here, Eli?" "Just having a conversation with Caleb about boundaries," I said. "I think we understand each other now." Caleb picked himself up, his expensive shirt torn and dirty. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is. You just don't know it yet." The confrontation marked the beginning of the end. Word spread quickly that Caleb had tried to fight me and lost. His golden boy image took another hit, and people started seeing him for what he really was, a spoiled rich kid who thought he could take whatever he wanted without consequences. Jocelyn tried one last desperate gambit. She went to my office and made a scene, claiming I was abusing her, that I'd become violent and controlling. She demanded that my coworkers help her, that they call the police. Unfortunately for her, Frankie had gotten a job with the security company that handled my building after some budget cuts at the Crooked Nail. He was working the front desk when she arrived, and he had his phone ready. The whole performance was recorded and live-streamed to the building's security social media account, a new policy meant to increase transparency about security incidents. Jocelyn's meltdown, her wild accusations, her demand that everyone believe her without evidence, all of it captured in high definition. The video went viral in our small town within hours. People could see her desperation, her manipulation, her willingness to destroy me to save herself. It was the final nail in the coffin of her reputation. That night, Mel called me with the news that Caleb had been suspended from his real estate firm, pending an investigation into personal conduct issues affecting professional relationships. Apparently, several clients had called to express concerns about his judgment and trustworthiness after seeing the social media posts and hearing the rumors. "He's finished," she said with satisfaction. "His career, his reputation, everything he cared about more than his family. Gone." What about Jocelyn? Her HR firm is conducting their own investigation. Turns out using company time and resources to coordinate personal affairs is a fireable offense. Who knew? We met one final time at the Crooked Nail to plan the coup de grace. Both our spouses were desperate now, isolated from their friends, facing professional consequences, watching their carefully built lives crumble. "They're going to try something," Mel predicted. "Some last-ditch effort to turn this around, make us the villains." She was right. The next day, I received a call from a lawyer representing both Jocelyn and Caleb. They were claiming harassment, stalking, and conspiracy. They wanted a restraining order and were threatening to sue for damages. It was a bold move, but it was also their final mistake. Mel and I had been careful to stay within legal boundaries. Everything we'd done was either public information or legitimate response to their actions. The anonymous posts could never be traced back to us. The vandalism had happened while I was provably elsewhere. The evidence we'd gathered was from accounts Jocelyn had given me access to during our marriage. But more importantly, we had one piece of evidence we'd been saving for exactly this moment. Hidden in Jocelyn's text messages was a conversation between her and Caleb about how to get rid of their spouses. Not physically, they weren't that stupid, but financially and socially. They'd discussed claiming abuse, manipulating mutual friends, and using their professional connections to damage our careers and reputations. They'd planned to destroy us before we even knew they were cheating. The lawyers' meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon at Caleb's office. Mel and I arrived together, accompanied by her boss from the law firm, a woman with a reputation for eating opposing counsel alive. Jocelyn and Caleb were already there with their attorney, a nervous-looking man who clearly wished he was anywhere else. They'd cleaned themselves up for the meeting, trying to project the image of wronged victims rather than exposed cheaters. "My clients have been subjected to a campaign of harassment and intimidation," their lawyer began. "They're seeking immediate relief and damages for the harm to their reputations and careers." Mel's boss smiled like a shark scenting blood. "Before we discuss your client's claims, perhaps we should address their own actions." She placed a thick folder on the conference table. 3 months of documented adultery, including photographs, text messages, financial records, and location data, plus evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud, defamation, and filing false police reports. The lawyer's face went pale as he flipped through the evidence. Jocelyn and Caleb looked like they wanted to disappear. "Furthermore," Mel's boss continued, "we have recordings of your clients discussing how to falsely accuse their spouses of abuse and other crimes to cover their own misconduct." She pressed play on a small recorder. Jocelyn's voice filled the room, clear as day. "If they get too close to the truth, we just flip it around. Make them look like the crazy ones. Eli's got that temper from his boxing days. Shouldn't be hard to make people believe he's abusive." Caleb's voice followed. And Mel's always been jealous and controlling. We can work with that. The silence in the room was deafening. My clients withdraw their complaints, the lawyer said quickly. This meeting is over. But we weren't done. As they tried to leave, Mel stood up and addressed Jocelyn and Caleb directly. You wanted to destroy us to cover your own guilt. You were willing to ruin our lives, our careers, our reputations, all so you could keep playing house without consequences. Well, congratulations. You got our attention. I stood beside her. You thought we were boring, predictable, easy to manipulate. You thought we'd just quietly disappear when you were done with us. But you forgot something important. What's that? Jocelyn asked, her voice barely a whisper. We're the ones who clean up messes for a living. We're very good at it. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The recording was leaked to the same gossip networks that had spread the original rumors. The full extent of their deception, their cruelty, their willingness to destroy innocent people for their own convenience was laid bare for everyone to see. Caleb lost his job, his marriage, and his standing in the community. He moved away within a month, leaving behind everything he'd built. Jocelyn was fired from her HR position for violating company policy and professional ethics. Her friends abandoned her completely, disgusted by the recordings that showed how little she'd thought of them, how willing she'd been to manipulate them. She tried to apologize, to explain, to make amends, but it was too late. The trust was gone, the damage was done. I filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, with evidence so overwhelming that her lawyer advised her to accept whatever terms I offered. She got nothing but her personal belongings and a bus ticket to wherever she wanted to start over. As I watched her pack her things, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not vindication, but a kind of cold emptiness. This wasn't the life I'd planned, the marriage I'd wanted, but it was the ending they'd chosen when they decided to betray everything we'd built together. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, as she closed the last suitcase. Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you'd be the one holding the knife instead of bleeding from it. She left without another word, and I never saw her again. Mel and I remained friends, bonded by what we'd been through together. We never became anything more. We were both too damaged, too wary of trusting again. But we'd learned something valuable about ourselves in those dark months. We weren't the boring, predictable people our spouses had dismissed. We were survivors, fighters, people who wouldn't be discarded without consequences. 6 months later, I was sitting at the Crooked Nail with Frankie, watching a baseball game and nursing a beer, when he asked me if I ever regretted how things had played out. They wanted space, I said, thinking about Jocelyn's original excuse for her distance, her coldness, her need to find herself. Now she's got the whole damn town of it. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.